Hi guys, welcome and who dat? I'm Joe. Welcome to Rosenfield 10. Today I am giving you another full roster setup of rookies for the Saints. Who they should draft, who are my favorite prospects at each position, and we did this in a previous video, and I'm doing another one because we're that much closer to the draft. It's only a couple of weeks away. Today is Tuesday, so on Thursday it'll be 2 weeks from Thursday. So let's see where I stand on these players right now. Now, I still have the top 18, and what I do in this exercise is I take the best 18 players off the board, and then I see who I'm going to pick at each position in the draft out of the remaining players. So I'm going to pull up the list of the top 18 right here. I've done this before. The top 8 are the must-pick players, and then I round out the top 18 with some of the better players at each position. Some of these can be interchangeable, but I'm going to leave it like this because it seems to still be the consensus top 18. You may have some variations depending on where you go. I don't have these players listed. I'm going to see if I can remember them and list them off right here. So everybody that's off the board, Caleb Williams, quarterback Caleb Williams, quarterback Drake May, quarterback Jaden Daniels, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver Malik Neighbors, left tackle Joe Alt, left tackle Olu Fashanu, wide receiver Rome Odunze. That's your top 8. I say if any of those 8 players are there at 14, Saints pick them. Then you've got the ever controversial Brock Bowers, tight end. That could be the other one you can't pass. Then you start with the edge rushers, and that's where I say you have options at this point, unless you have an absolute favorite. I think at this point the draft can go either way. Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Leatu Latu. Then you've got your top 2 consensus cornerbacks, which will be Quinyon Mitchell and Terrion Arnold. Then you've got your right tackle in Talise Fawanga. And you've got another quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. And then you've got your top 2 interior defensive linemen, Jerzan Johnny Newton and Byron Murphy. All right, 18. There you go. Those 18 players we're going to assume are off the board when the Saints pick at 14, even though only 13 of them will be off the board. I'm going to make this interesting. These are the consensus top 18. They are off the board. Who am I going to pick at every position? So let's pull up the offense first, and we break it down like this. The top 2 quarterbacks available once those top 4 are off the board are Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., and up until very recently, I would have said Michael Penix, but I'm leaning more towards Bo Nix. I would rather deal with the problems you have with Nix than with the problems you have with Penix. I think they're neck and neck. So if it were my choice, it would be Bo Nix, but I wouldn't be sad if it were Michael Penix Jr. instead. I think there's a lot to work with both players. I worry about Penix's ability to escape the pressure. I know he can move around in the pocket pretty good, but yeah, I would rather take Bo Nix and deal with his limitations than Michael Penix potentially being a statue back there. So that's my opinion. I would probably lean J.J. McCarthy if he were available instead of Bo Nix, just because of all the potential. It's kind of like with Nix, too. Yeah, nobody beats Caleb Williams, of course. And then There's the debate whether Drake May is the next best or Jaden Daniels. I would take Drake May as a pure quarterback, slightly ahead of Daniels, but I think Daniels is the clear number 3, and his ability to run just could make him the best quarterback in this class. So that's how I feel about quarterback. At running back, it's the same. Jonathan Brooks is my favorite. I don't think the Saints would ever be in play to take him. If we acquire mid-round picks and somehow Jonathan Brooks is in the 3rd round, then you could consider it. My backup running back is Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. So Wright could possibly be there in the 3rd round. That's a possibility. And in a recent mock draft I did, I ended up having 4 3rd-round picks, and I took Wright because he was still there, and it was too good of a player to pass up. Now, usually when I'm drafting running backs for the Saints, I either don't draft one at all or I take one really late, and it's a guy that kind of seems to fit in this Kubiak-Shanahan system. But yeah, Jonathan Brooks and Wright are 2 players that are too good to pass up overall players. You know, their ability to fit into our specific system, I think that Brooks and Wright are good enough to be great running backs no matter where they go. So that's how I feel about that. Now, the last time I did this at tight end, I had Ja'Tavion Sanders backed up by Jaheim Bell, because I think both of them are interesting pieces to play tight end in this offense. But we have tight ends with special abilities right now. You know, Juwan Johnson's a receiving tight end. Taysom Hill can be a receiver or a runner. So we kind of have tight ends with special things. We don't have a tight end that's complete. So I want to lean more towards having the complete player play tight end, and I'm going to throw Ja'Tavion Sanders and Jaheim Bell in the fullback category. The last list I had Blake Corum and A.J. Barner as my fullbacks because of their ability to run and receive and stuff like that. But I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. At fullback, I'm going to have Ja'Tavion Sanders, Jaheim Bell, and basically, in my opinion, the Shanahan-Kubiak system, your fullback, your tight end, your running back, they should all be able to do special things, receive, block, run. So fullback, tight end, in this offense, I think, are kind of interchangeable, and you should be able to put players in those positions. They're going to have to function that way. So you can line up Sanders as a tight end. You can line him up as a wide receiver. You can line him up as a fullback. You know, that's how I feel. Same thing with Jaheim Bell. And then at tight end, my 3 favorites are, look, I love Sanders, but I think you have to get him in the 2nd round. So I've moved off of Sanders as a potential grab at tight end. And I think 3rd round into 4th round, the best tight ends there are Cade Stover, Ben Sinnott, and Theo Johnson. Those 3 are my guys. And if I'm acquiring mid-round picks at some point, especially in the 4th round, I think you can get one of those guys, and they're a complete tight end, and they make this team better. So right now, my favorite is going to be Cade Stover because of his higher floor, and I'm going to have Ben Sinnott as my backup. And, yeah, Theo Johnson is just a stud. I wouldn't be upset if we ended up with Theo Johnson. So I think we're 3 deep at tight end in the mid-rounds here for the Saints. I would be so stoked to get a complete tight end like Ben Sinnott or Theo Johnson or Cade Stover for the Saints at tight end. Wide receiver, nothing's changed for me. I still have Brian Thomas Jr. and A.D. Mitchell as my favorites after the first 3 are gone. I love their size, speed, combo. They would fit into our system. Brian Thomas and A.D. Mitchell are both pretty good run blockers as well. And my slot guy will be Ladd McConkey. he's just a stud. If he's there at pick 45, it'd be hard not to grab him. I mean, my dream scenario is that A.D. Mitchell falls to pick 45. But I'm pretty sure Mitchell's going to be gone, and I'm pretty sure Ladd McConkey's going to be gone. So my primary backups at wide receiver would be Jalen Polk, Keon Coleman, and Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall being that backup slot. And he's 6'1", so he might be able to play a little on the outside too. But I think all of those, Jalen Polk, Keon Coleman, and Ricky Pearsall will be there at 45. So that's where, that's where the pick's going to come in at if you wait on wide receiver. A.D. Mitchell would be the dream scenario. McConkey's too good to pass at 45. But I think Keon Coleman could be there. Ricky Pearsall could be there. And I'm pretty sure Jalen Polk will still be there. So that's my favorite wide receivers. And now we're going to look at the offensive line. And I've kind of adjusted this a little from the last list. At center, Jackson Powers Johnson is the man. He's more of a bullish big guy, but I think he's talented enough to be able to do what we would ask him to do. So I'm going to keep him at center. And I liked Graham Barton as my backup center here. Barton can play anywhere along the offensive line. And I'm going to go ahead and have Zach Frazier as my backup center on this particular list because I'm going to start Graham Barton at left guard. I had Cooper Bebe there before. I like Barton's flexibility. Now, Troy Fontenot is a guy that projects to play guard, and a lot of people are projecting him to play tackle as well. A lot of people are starting to push Troy Fontenot into the top 15, top 10 as far as tackle prospects go. I'm weird when it comes to Fontenot. I think he's not a very good run blocker. He's too aggressive, and in that way kind of reminds me of Penning, where he thinks he's just going to be over-aggressive, and then sometimes he just whiffs. And I don't like that, especially since our guys are going to be moving. Now, Fontenot moves great. He projects great as a guard in our system if he can tone it down a little on the aggression. So, yeah, Fontenot is a great pick, and I think he is a legitimate tackle option. But I'm going to have Fontenot as my backup left guard, and I'm going to stick with Graham Barton. He's a little more controlled, measured, and, Barton can play anywhere on the line. I'm going to go with that at left guard. And at right guard, Christian Haynes is my man, of course. And then I'm going to have Cooper Bebe right after him. I think Christian Mahogany is a little too big and clunky to get on the move. Bebe can get on the move. I like what Bebe can do. I'm calling him Bebe. I don't know what his name is, but I like Bebe. So that's your guards. That's your interior right there. Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson, Christian Haynes. Your backups will be Troy Fontenot, Zach Frazier, and Cooper Bebe. Now, at tackle, we're going to go with right tackle first. Fuanga's off the board, so it's really a question of J.C. Latham, Amarius Mims, Tyler Guyton. And I'm going to go with J.C. Latham again. I still feel like he's athletic enough and has movement skills that are a little bit better than Mims. I think Mims is going to turn out to be a great right tackle. I don't really project Mims to the left side, and I don't know if Latham could do it or not. I have faith Latham could play guard. But I really have faith that Latham can play good on the move as a tackle in our scheme. So I'm going to keep Latham at right tackle with Amarius Mims as the backup. And at left tackle, I'm going to go with Tyler Guyton because after Joe Alt and Olu Fashanu, your next best true left tackle would be Jordan Morgan, and he's more of a second-round projection. I project to move Guyton from the right side to the left side, and I think that works out better than if you tried it with Latham or if you tried it with Mims. So that's why I have Tyler Guyton as my top left tackle. And I would be right there, if I'm picking a left tackle, I need one. Tyler Guyton's on the board, a right tackle. and Jordan Morgan's on the board, a left tackle, I would have this discussion. Do we pick Morgan, who has short arms and some people think might have to move inside, but he's played left tackle his whole career? Or do we take a chance with the athletic Tyler Guyton and switch sides with him? So I'm going to go ahead and say Guyton's a better player than Morgan. I would take the chance on his athleticism, take a chance on switching him, and take Guyton first. And then I would have Jordan Morgan right after him. And Jordan Morgan and Patrick Paul are like neck and neck for me. I think that Patrick Paul is the better overall prospect, better ceiling. And you can probably get Patrick Paul late second, third round. I think Jordan Morgan, you're going to have to take in the second round. You're going to have to take him pretty early. Paul, it might surprise some people. Paul might go in the second round too. So that's where I am with left tackle. And Christian Jones out of Texas, I'm still a huge fan of him. And he is there as a backup true left tackle for me. I would go Guyton first. Then I would have that conversation between Patrick Paul, Jordan Morgan. Probably lean towards Jordan Morgan. And then if I don't get anybody and I go into the third round and I miss on Patrick Paul, yeah, Christian Jones would still be a great pick for me at that point. All right, that's the offensive players. I like to discuss each position, what's available after these top 18 are gone. So, a lot of these players that I'm mentioning on my list right here in my offense and my defense, I'm not sure if I would take them with the 14th overall pick, but they are my favorites at each position, and I want to do this to prepare myself for whenever the Saints do the inevitable, which is to grab somebody that we don't need at a position we don't need. And so if I have my favorites already listed, then at least I'll have a better understanding of what's going on there. Because, the Saints could easily take cornerback with the first pick, safety with the second pick, and just blow everybody's mind. So we'll see what they do, and now let's look at the defense. And this has changed a little bit for me since the first video I did like this. At defensive end, all of your top three edge rushers are gone. Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Laiatu Latu, all gone. Who do you pick? My favorite is the big end, Darius Robinson. And then behind him, Porkchop Robinson. He would be my favorite smaller edge that's still available. And then my other defensive ends would be two other big guys, in Marshawn Kneeland and Brandon Dorlus. I like those four as edge rushers to come off the board after your top three. I would go with Darius Robinson. I like taking a chance on Marshawn Kneeland. And then Brandon Dorlus, somewhere in that third round range. And Porkchop Robinson. I don't know if I said Patrick Robinson before. Porkchop Robinson, who is obviously a late first, second round pick. But like I say, if I had my choice at that point, I needed an edge. Instead of taking Porkchop Robinson, I would lean more towards Darius Robinson. And I have to have that conversation. Pass on Porkchop in the hopes of getting Kneeland or Brandon Dorlus later. That's the way I'm swinging with defensive end. At defensive tackle, I'm going to go ahead with my number 1 3-tech and go with Braden Fisk. I had Brandon Dorlus here before, and I still like the idea of Dorlus and Darius Robinson projecting from the edge to the middle of the defensive line on certain downs, and they could both play and be pretty active at defensive tackle. Braden Fisk is also a guy that I wouldn't be against drafting and trying to put in the middle of the line next to Bryan Bresee. I like Bryan Bresee at the 3-tech. Braden Fisk would be a good 3-tech, but I think Fisk is just big enough where, especially on passing downs, he could fit in the middle of the defensive line at either position, I think. But my favorite nose type is going to be Chris Jenkins, 300 pounds, and he's pretty active enough to get after the passer, but I love his ability to stop the run. So that's how I'm clogging the middle here with Chris Jenkins and Braden Fisk. My backup 3-tech's going to be Dwayne Carter, and my backup nose is going to be T'Vondre Sweat, even though he'd probably give you limited snaps. After Chris Jenkins, I would go with Sweat, and then right around there, I would think Aurora, and yeah, that's where I'm at defensive tackle. Linebacker, nothing's changed here. You got Peyton Wilson, Edgerrin Cooper, Junior Colson. I've got them lined up across the way, and if I needed a backup at any of those positions, I would take either one of those three. So, yeah, I like Peyton Wilson at the will, but if he's gone, I'll put Edgerrin Cooper out there. I'll even put Junior Colson out there. Same thing in the middle. I like Edgerrin Cooper. If he's not there, I'll take Peyton Wilson, put him in the middle. I'll take Colson right now, put him in the middle. No problem. And then it's Sam, same thing. Those are your three best linebackers, and either one of them would be my number one backup. So my backups are kind of goofy since I've got three linebackers here who can play any position. But at backup middle, I'll go with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. again. At backup Sam or Will, I'll go with Jaylan Ford. And then after that, I like Cedric Gray, but only on the strong side. And then on the weak side, after Wilson, Cooper, Colson, Trotter, and Ford, it just gets weird for me. Maris Laufu is okay. Too many questions. You got the kid from Washington, Olafoshio. Just so many questions for a will. Not a lot of great linebackers that I see play in the will very well, except for these that I've already mentioned. So, linebacker's weird. We've addressed linebacker twice in free agency now, and I think we're looking pretty good at linebacker. It's something I thought we needed to address in the draft at some point, but now that we have a number 3 and number 4 linebacker on the roster, now I think we can just skip on linebacker altogether and it won't be so bad. At secondary, my favorite cornerbacks are Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. I know it's DeJean, whatever. I say DeJean, and that's the way it's going to stay. But I've taken Quinyon Mitchell and Terrion Arnold off the board. So my next two outside corners would be Kool-Aid McKinstry and Cooper DeJean. I like Cooper DeJean projected as a nickel and a safety. So at nickelback, I would go with Cooper DeJean and then Mike Sainristil for a nickel. And then if Cooper DeJean and Kool-Aid McKinstry don't play the outside, I'm still leaning towards Ennis Rakestraw as an outside backup. Yeah, and Nate Wiggins would still be on the board. And even though Nate Wiggins is 6'2", he only weighs 170 pounds. It's just ridiculous. I just don't want a cornerback that doesn't have the size to tackle. Rakestraw is not a big guy, but he loves to tackle. So, if I had my top 3 cornerbacks remaining on the board, my outside guys would be Kool-Aid McKinstry and Ennis Rakestraw, and then my nickel would be Cooper DeJean and Mike Sainristil. DeJean can play safety as well. Speaking of safety, Tyler Nubin would be my number 1 deep guy. I'm kind of leaning towards Hicks out of Washington State as a good deep guy, backup. And then in the box, I'll take Cole Bishop every day of the week. And I'm having a hard time drafting him lately because people are grabbing him in the bottom of the 2nd round, early 3rd round. So everybody seems to be getting on board with my boy Bishop. And my backup strong safety, box safety, would be Bullard out of Georgia. I kind of like the fit there right now. These things could change, but I like to do this experiment. I like to set it up as a full team and to see what every, position would be. So that's your offense, that's your defense, and putting them side by side. Yep, that's the way it goes. So if my top 18 players are off the board, these are the guys I would lean towards. So I wanted to do another video like this before the draft to let you guys know how I feel about every position and, the very top of each position. You guys let me know in the comments who your favorites are. If you can have your choice of any running back, would you take Jonathan Brooks or Wright, or would you go another direction? Maybe Blake Corum, maybe the big boy out of Wisconsin. Let me know what you think. Wide receivers, would you rather have a smaller Troy Franklin instead of the guys I mentioned, Ladd McConkey, Ricky Pearsall? Would you rather have Roman Wilson than Ricky Pearsall? And then left tackle, that's the big one. We all want Olu Fashanu. And yeah, he could be there at 14. And if he is there at 14, you take him for sure. But what if he's not there? Who do you project that's a right tackle in this draft that can play left tackle? I lean towards Tyler Guyton. I think he can do it. I'm not against Amarius Mims doing it. As a matter of fact, he says he practiced 40% of his time in college at left tackle, so maybe he could make the transition no problem. He's such a mountain of a man. I worry about Mims moving to so much, but Latham, he's a huge dude too. Tyler Guyton's a monster as well. And then guard. Let me know if I got it wrong with Fontenot. Do you think Fontenot's the best left tackle prospect available? Would you draft him at 14 over getting Tyler Guyton and switching him over later on in the draft? And then on defense, of course, if Verse and Latu and Turner aren't there, so who's your next guy? Some people would say Porkchop Robinson, Chris Braswell. I lean towards the bigger guys in Robinson, Darius Robinson, and Marshawn Nealon and Brandon Dorlus. And then the defensive tackle. Let me know what you think. Cornerbacks and safety as well. I am all ears. I am a guy that loves to hear other people's opinions because I'm an empath of sorts, so I like to put myself in other people's shoes, see what they think. It'll influence me because I'm going to make an educated guess after gathering as much information as I can. So let me know in the comments what you think. I'm Joe. Subscribe to Rosenbuilt 10 because I will be doing Saints videos all off season long. My favorite, most productive part of the year is all of this off season leading up to the draft. It's the funnest time of football when you don't win the Super Bowl. And I do cover the Saints every game with a preview and a review every week. So subscribe to my channel, share this, and hopefully I'll see you around, and I'll talk to you later. Who dat?